everybody, Tony D with a final hot take of the evening, and this one on the riots. First, a quick update. Jacob Blake, the guy who was shot 7 times by cops, new video emerged late yesterday of another angle and earlier footage of the incident. So in the original footage, you see Jacob sort of coming around to the side of his car. The cops are pointing guns at him, screaming at him. He won't listen. He gets into his car. He starts reaching in. The cop tries to pull him out. It doesn't work. There's a girl screaming, fairly young girl screaming, don't do it, don't do it. I believe she's screaming at him. He still refuses to listen. He goes in the car again, and they shoot him. And a lot of people are saying, well, 7 times, that's way too much. You have to understand that cops, when they decide to initiate lethal force, they're trying to kill you. They're not trying to wound you. They're trying to kill you. They're shooting into you to stop your heart and kill you. That's what they're doing. The fact that they eventually got him under control and then called the ambulance and saved his life is a testament to their professionalism. And that sounds harsh to say, but if you don't listen to the cops and you're acting erratic and dangerous, and then you try to get into a car with children and drive away, first off, the car is a lethal weapon. It is. So they couldn't let him leave in the car. They could not let him leave with children in the car either. When the cops showed up, they were partially responsible for the safety of those children as well. And if he was acting erratic, they couldn't let him leave with those kids. He was in probably a domestic dispute, and people do crazy things. They kill themselves. They do. They drive off cliffs or into a river or die, suicide by cop. This could have been a suicide by cop. That could have been why he was reaching in there. I said last night, it could be that his ex was jacking him up on phony police charges because she's trying to get the kids or whatever. It's very frustrating. And if this guy also had warrants. He had a criminal record. He's not a choir boy. I'm not glad he got shot, but watch the footage. I mean, what are you going to do when a guy does that? Okay? I mean, at what point do we say, okay, cops have to shoot you at some point if you're not going to listen to them? At what point is it okay? I mean, we could have that discussion, but again, look at the damn footage. Anyhow, the riots. Yet again, the riots are stupid, idiotic, counterproductive, yada, yada, yada. Terrible things have happened. All sorts of videos have emerged. Shop owners being attacked, trying to put out the fires. Guys crying over their businesses that have been around for decades. Let me explain to you what's going to happen to Kenosha, Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, and some of the other cities that have seen such terrible violence. I live in New Jersey, and we have the cities of Camden, Newark, and Jersey City. Those cities burned. They burned during the MLK assassination, I believe during the Watts riots, also during the Malcolm X assassination. And Camden burned. We have a holiday, an unofficial holiday here, called Mischief Night. It takes place before Halloween, and people run out and they're supposed to do mild things like TP trees and soap windows, and it's like kids doing pranks. One year, they took it a little too far in Camden and literally burned down half the city. They just started lighting fires, and it was nuts. They had to call in every fire department in like a 20-mile radius to come in and try to put out the fires. It was bad. And, so those cities in New Jersey for decades had what are known as food deserts. And food deserts are places in America where there aren't supermarkets or decent places to buy sort of regular food. Now, I'm not talking about snacks or going to McDonald's. I'm talking about regular just food that you would take home and cook. They just didn't have them. There were elderly people who would have to get on buses or trains and go several towns over, maybe spend an hour of traveling, just to go to a supermarket, buy all their groceries, bag them all up, get back on the bus or the train. It would take them hours to go shopping. It was like half a day just to get their food for the week. And that was a common occurrence, especially in Camden, because no one was crazy enough to open a supermarket in Camden. They were worried the place would get, the windows would get bashed in, and the place would get burned out and looted, as it happened in the late 60s. And I think in the 70s too. I think in the early 70s too. That's exactly what's going to happen to all these cities. Those nice stores that people used to go into, they're all going away. They're all going away. Because even the ones that didn't get hit, they're probably going to suffer greatly in the aftermath of this. Their profit margins will go into the toilet. They will still have to deal with rampant crime. They will probably have to they'll probably have to lock down their remaining stores like a prison, so people won't steal everything in the store. And after a while, they'll still end up closing them down, because it'll just, as those stores disappear and the whole city goes to hell and nobody has jobs, crime will become even more rampant. You won't be able to protect these places, and they'll just close up, because they don't want to lose money opening a store. And if you start losing money opening a store, what's the point? These corporations don't want to open stores just to say, oh, we opened a store in a really bad neighborhood where it gets robbed every other day. We had a mini mart near Camden. I think it was technically in Camden. It was a gas station. It used to get robbed literally every other week. I mean, it was ridiculous. It had a little mini mart. There was no money in it after a while. Sometimes they would try to rob it twice in the same night. There would be no money left. The cops were constantly over there, because it was just a place where junkies, that would be the first place they would rob, because they were too stupid to figure out a good place to rob. That's where these cities are headed. They're going to have food deserts. None of the locals will have a place to shop. The bodegas, they don't have enough food. You can't buy a pot roast at a bodega. You can't buy real meat there. Maybe you could buy like bacon. Maybe they got like a little cooler and they've got like eggs and a handful of things, but you can't. They got to charge extra money. It's a small store. That the prices will continue to go up. Even those places will probably close, or they'll have to charge so much it just won't be realistic. You can only get so much at these little tiny bodegas, and they will gouge the locals. They will. Beans cost, like a can of beans is still less than $1 near me, right? It's probably like 59, 69 cents. I promise you, in a bodega, it's going to cost $2, $3, $4 in one of these places, because the locals won't have any choice. So all BLM and Antifa has done is they've destroyed these places, and what will be left behind are the poor people to struggle in the remnants. And they are looking at 20, 30 years of this. That's how long it took Camden to get any regular stores. Around here, when we have to go to jury duty, we go to Camden proper, because this is Camden County, and Camden, the city, they do all the jury duty. So everybody knows you get on the Patco and you have to get on off on this one particular stop. And years ago when you did it, there was nothing. There was the stop and then 2 blocks of nothing and then a courtroom. So you would walk out of the train stop and go, oh crap, and you'd walk as quickly as you could to the courthouse, 2 blocks away, past, a pile of rubble, and then you'd go do jury duty. Well, about, I guess in the late 90s, maybe 20 years ago, they finally started building stuff. Maybe in the 2000s, I don't remember exactly when. But now, on those 2 plots between the courthouse and the train station, there's a CVS and a TD Bank. It's nice. I mean, it's nicer than it was. It's not a hollowed out building or an empty lot full of a pile of bricks. There's something there. And it's a nice CVS. I mean, it's decent. It's not great. But, and a nice TD Bank with a drive up and everything. They've got nice parking lots now. They've rebuilt the area. But it's like 30, 40 years from the riots. That's a long time. Okay? So this is what you're going to get, rioters. You're going to be in your mid-50s, approaching 60. And you will have spent the last 20 or 30 years getting on a bus on a Saturday, your day off, go traveling an hour out of your way to go to the supermarket to buy all your groceries. You know, put them all in your thing, come all the way back on the bus, go all the way back to your apartment. Hopefully nobody robs you on the way in your crappy neighborhood. And then you have food for the week. And then you're going to be on a news story where it's like, food deserts are a terrible thing and we have to save the community. And then finally, 30 years after all these riots that you helped cause, the corporations will come in with an amazing tax incentive and build a supermarket that's not too far from your place. And you will thank God Almighty that it happened and you no longer have to take the bus an hour out of your way just to get your groceries. And you'll be like, oh, this is great. This is so convenient. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's what you have to look forward to. In the meantime, you're going to be in a food desert. You're going to be screwed. You're going to be living in a terrible place for years to come because until these Democratic governors and mayors go. Now, a Republican might come in and make that process happen sooner. He might clean house, clean up the town, law and order, yada, 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 and then say, okay, well, now we'll provide some tax bases and try to get some, opportunity zones going early, quickly. That's part of the Trump-Pence, agenda for the second term. Maybe they could cut down that process to a year or two. By the end of the Trump term, you could have stores back. The city could be back kind of to where it was in Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland. No more rioting. You could walk down the street and it's just a normal street. And yeah, people hand you a pamphlet for their stupid socialist BS, but it's not going to be a riot anymore. Doesn't that sound nice? Yeah. So I don't think the Democrats want to do that. I mean, they're going to hand, if Biden is elected, he'll hand all those governors and all those mayors tons of money. But you know what happens to that money, right? I mean, they piss it all away on programs that haven't worked since the 60s. So if they don't get the law and order part right, and keep in mind that a lot of the police force will have already quit, and the guys who got promoted and toughed it out, they're not exactly going to be the best cops. The smartest guys will probably have already moved to another city. Probably going to Texas. Everybody's going to Texas. So I'm just saying, these riots are the worst possible thing for Black lives. Black Lives Matter. The worst. For black people living in the inner city, it's the worst. If you live in a poor neighborhood in the inner city, the riots are the last thing you need. It won't help you. When they cut back on the police force, you'll be the first neighborhood they don't patrol in anymore. And crime will just get worse and worse and worse. You ain't gonna patrol it. Nah. Black Lives Matter isn't gonna patrol your streets. And if they do, well, there's going to be a lot of problems then. Did you see the Chaz? Did you see how they patrolled the Chaz? Randos with guns, screaming at people, not really having any procedures or anything. Oh, and then you're going to call the actual police to come fix that problem? Good luck with that. They've already written you off. That's what they used to do. Cops used to say, oh, we don't go to that part of the city anymore. Nah, let those people fight it out amongst themselves. That's what they'll say. And that's what'll happen. It won't be like an official rule, but it'll just happen. Because you made it happen. So, I think the only way to reverse this trend, if you really want to reverse this trend in your cities, is you need counter rioting protests. You do. You need to stand up to the rioters and demand that they stop if you live in one of these cities. Now, you're going to need a lot of people. a lot of people. And you're going to have to get them on board with stopping the rioters. And I'm not encouraging any kind of violence. In fact, quite the opposite. But, if you have a show of strength and enough people, the rioters will be forced to just move on. And at that point, you can kind of just corral them somewhere. You can also support the police in their endeavors to arrest these people by videotaping them and gathering evidence. But mainly, you could show up and try to protect the town, what's left of it, if you can. Again, I'm not advocating any violence, but it depends on who you are. Some people are trained and some people aren't. Some people have weapons, some people don't. But, you have to understand your local laws and the rules therein. Don't just, think it's the Wild West, even though it may seem that way. You need to work within the law. You need to be the law-abiding ones, because that mob's not going to be the law-abiding ones. And if you are persistent, and keep in mind that these idiots in the mob, they don't have any jobs. They have all the time in the world. So you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time doing this until the lid is back on the pot. Or you got to move. Just get the hell out. That's the easy solution. So it depends on how much you want your city back. And then you can vote this November. I wonder which will be the vote for keeping the cities from burning.